I'm telling you this because I don't know who else to tell. It's been haunting me for weeks now. The flickering light. No, it wasn't just a flickering light. It was something far worse. It started innocently enough, like most of these things do. I'd recently moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. Quiet, secluded. One of those places you pick up when you're just looking for a place to get away from everything. It was supposed to be a fresh start. New city, new life, right? The place was old like everything around here. There was a low hum in the walls, the kind of sound that made it feel as though the house was breathing. Maybe it was just the pipes. That's what I kept telling myself. But then came the light. It was a small, dim bulb over the kitchen sink. It was old-fashioned, yellowish in hue, and it hung there like an overripe fruit. I'd often sit there late at night, sipping tea, staring at the wall, wondering what the hell I was doing with my life. That's when I first noticed it. Just a faint flicker in the corner of my eye. It was the light. The light would flicker for a second or two, like a glitch, but it always came back. I thought it was the bulb, maybe a loose connection. But then it began to happen more frequently, the flicker lasting longer, sometimes even going completely out before coming back on with a sizzle. I ignored it at first. I wasn't going to let a little faulty wiring drive me mad. But there's something you need to know about these old houses. They're full of their own kind of energy, a presence that doesn't belong. You can feel it deep in your gut. Something lurking just beneath the floorboards. Something waiting. It was one night around midnight, I think, when the first incident happened. The light didn't flicker this time. It went out. Total darkness. I was used to the odd power outages, but this time, it felt different. I reached for my phone to use as a flashlight, but before I could, I heard it. A soft scraping sound, like nails against wood, or something heavier dragging across the floor. It started slow, methodical, like whatever was making the sound was testing the waters. Then it picked up speed, a rhythmic pattern, like it was pacing back and forth. I froze. I wanted to scream, but my throat wouldn't cooperate. My eyes darted around the kitchen, searching for any sign of movement. The scraping was louder now, closer. It felt like it was right behind me, and I could feel the temperature drop, like a thick, icy fog had rolled into the room. I wasn't alone. I tried to move, but my legs wouldn't obey. The air felt heavy, thick, and oppressive. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my body stayed rooted to the spot. The scraping was right next to me now, just out of sight. I could feel it there, in the shadows. And that's when I saw it. The light. It flickered back on, harsh and bright, blinding for a moment. And when my eyes adjusted, I saw it. A figure standing at the far corner of the room. A shadow. No, not a shadow. A man. He was tall, too tall for a normal person, and dressed in something old-fashioned. A long coat, dark as midnight, with a wide-brimmed hat that obscured most of his face. But it wasn't the clothes that chilled me. It was the way he stood there, perfectly still, as if waiting for something, waiting for me. I blinked, and he was gone. The flickering light buzzed and hummed, and the room returned to its normal, silent state. The scraping sound had stopped. I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking maybe I had imagined it all. Maybe I'd been staring too long at that old bulb, letting my mind get the best of me. But it wasn't over. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard the scraping again, and again. Only this time it was louder, more frantic. I threw the covers off and ran to the kitchen, heart pounding in my chest. And there he was, the man in the corner, standing taller than before, his body slightly contorted, as if he were stretching out of some unseen boundary. His fingers twitched, elongated, scraping against the floor like claws. The light flickered again, and this time, it stayed off. I could hear his breathing now, deep, ragged, as though whatever was sucking the air out of the room. I felt my chest tighten, suffocating me, and then a whisper, barely audible at first, a rasping voice, cold and familiar. "You shouldn't be here." I didn't wait to hear more. I stumbled. I didn't know where I was going, but I had to get out. I fled to the front door, but when I reached for the handle, it wouldn't turn. The door, once simple and harmless, had become a wall, an unmovable barrier. I turned back. The light flickered on again, brighter this time, and the figure was closer, standing just inches from me now, his face finally visible beneath that brimmed hat, except there was no face. Just darkness, swirling like smoke. I screamed. I don't know how long I screamed for, but when I finally opened my eyes, I was back in bed. The room was normal. The light was on. I was drenched in sweat, my heart still racing. I could feel the floor beneath me, the rough sheets on my skin. Was it all a dream? But the flickering light was still there. The scraping, too, had returned.